why the attachment styles are stupid, because most people miss out on this such important part that I want to break down for you today. So please stick around if you've ever heard of the anxious or the avoidant or the fearful or the secure attachment style. Let me break it down of what they are and what most people miss out on, which makes this attachment style use of them stupid. My name is Lewis. I'm a coach. I've coached over 6,000 people, written a book. I help people heal, find their life's purpose, create a life that they love, and build conscious, intimate relationships. So I'm going to rip straight into it. So if you're not familiar on what the attachment styles are, just go to Google, go to ChatGPT. There are plenty of definitions out there. So the attachment styles are essentially, it's an attachment theory of how people relate to each other in relationships, okay? If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sharing my screen right now. If you can watch the video, please do so. Now, there are 4 styles. There's the secure attachment. This is someone who is comfortable opening up with their emotions, being vulnerable, and actually having good maturity and trust within their relationships. Now, there is I'm just going to break them down quickly. There's the anxious attachment. These are people who constantly seek reassurance, validation. They're clingy, they're dependent, and they are very sensitive to their partner's mood swings. Now, the third is the avoidant. So this is people that run away, people that struggle with emotional closeness and vulnerability. They seem distant, emotionally unavailable, and unwilling to depend on others. They're independent and don't need anyone to support them. And then you've got your disorganized, or in other words, fearful avoidant. It's a bit of a mixture of both anxious and avoidant put together. They fluctuate between wanting intimacy and pushing people away. They have fear of getting hurt. They will sabotage their relationships. All 3 of these ones do that. Now, this is the part that I don't like about attachment styles that most people don't talk about, and it keeps people stuck. So let me break this down. Think of these 3 things. I talk about this in like most of my content, so you probably heard it before if you've listened to my podcast. Number 1, trauma. Trauma is a trait or a behavior. Someone did something or didn't do something that was too much or not enough or painful or wrong. It will be a trait or a behavior. So you got to break it down to certain words. There are 4,628 traits that human beings can display. Let's list some out for you guys. Rejection, abandonment, control, manipulation, dismissed, criticized, judged, list goes on. Whatever traits or behaviors that you've been through that were, quote, painful to you become traumas for you, wounds for you. Then the second point, coping mechanisms. You can call it traumatic reactions, trauma responses, shadows. There's many words you can use to describe it. It's essentially what you do to overcompensate, overcome, protect, and hide the trauma. This could look like running away. This could look like getting anxious, being needy, self-sabotaging, people-pleasing, overworking, smoking a cigarette, eating food, spending money, sex. There's many things you can do to overcompensate, and protect the trauma and wound. Third is a trigger. A trigger is something that reminds you of the trauma and activates the coping mechanism. That's why I say all the time, nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. So let's break these down and let's use it when it comes to the attachment styles. Essentially, whatever your coping mechanisms are, the way you can categorize it, or people categorize your coping mechanisms into attachment styles. I'll use rejection because it's a common one for a lot of people. Rejection or abandonment, insert which one makes sense to you. So let's say you've got a trauma around rejection and abandonment. Depending what you do or what your coping mechanism is, you would get categorized into an attachment style. So say your coping mechanism of rejection or abandonment is to run away, is to hide, to cut off, to shut down. That would be categorized as avoidant. Say your coping mechanism is you get anxious and clingy and needy and desperate, that would get categorized as anxious. Fantastic. Now, and then trigger, when then someone rejects you or abandons you, or you feel rejected or you feel abandoned, you would get activated into your coping mechanism. The reason I like teaching it like this is because you can heal trauma. Do a healing process on the wound. And I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testimonials of people who have gone through my healing processes to heal the trauma. Just a side note for this conversation for people that follow me and have consumed my content. Limiting beliefs can do the same thing, but I'm mainly talking about trauma for this video. But just on the side, limiting beliefs do play a part here, but I'm mainly referring to trauma. One of the reasons why I like teaching it like this is because it gives you the power to do something about it. How most people, when they talk about attachment styles, they frame it like this. I'm anxiously avoidant. My partner's having a mind blank, is avoidant. Sorry, I said they're both the same thing. Say you've got an anxious attachment and your partner is an avoidant attachment. How does it serve you knowing that? It allows you to understand your partner and yourself and how you can relate better to each other in the moment, in the short term. That's beneficial. That does help out. But it doesn't show you or empower you to move towards a secure attachment. I haven't met a single human yet who would prefer to be anxious, avoidant, or fearful. Every person I've spoken to about this, they want to become secure. In other words, to say, how do you become securely attached? Heal from your trauma so your coping mechanisms and triggers go away. That's the part most people don't talk about. They're like, okay, I'm anxiously attached. These are all my strategies. This is how it plays out. This is how I can overcome it for now. This is how you can deal with it now, or vice versa if you're avoidant or fearful. Now, again, it doesn't serve you long term. It's like, okay, this is how I am. This is how my partner is. This is how we can relate better to each other right here, right now. But what about this? Why don't we just recognize, okay, when I get triggered into a coping mechanism, it's actually just a trauma of mine being revealed. And now with that awareness, I can go heal from that trauma. Then my coping mechanisms and triggers go away. So then when the next time your partner does the same trait, I'll use rejection and abandonment again. Say you go heal from your abandonment and rejection wounds. The next time you get, quote, rejected or abandoned, you won't get triggered. When you've healed your wounds, the wounds are gone. The triggers are gone. The coping mechanisms are gone. And guess what? You're more securely attached. I just don't know why people don't talk about it. They just say, okay, I'm anxious avoidant. I'm fearful avoidant. I'm anxiously attached. I'm avoidant attached. I'm fearful attached. Now what? Now what do you do? You're just like, okay, I'm fucked. I'm just, this is who I am forever. I just don't like that part. So this is a shorter podcast because I hopefully got to the point of this. If you want to move towards a secure attachment, all you need to do is to become aware of your triggers, your wounds, your trauma you haven't healed from. How do you do that? Become aware of when you're triggered. Become aware of where you project onto others. Actually, I'll do this little exercise. I do this exercise in my other videos. So if you haven't done it, do it again and have fun. So think of your parents, and this is mainly where your wounds come from, is your parents. And partners and other people, but let's use parents. So I want you to think about mum and dad. Now, you'll do one at a time, and you'll see how this plays out. Think of dad. We'll start with dad. Whoever played that role for you. Now, you can only use a one-word answer to answer these questions. And you're going to give me a couple of answers. In one word, it will be a character trait, or it will be a behavior of yours. It will be or a behavior in general. So it will be a character trait or a behavior. In one word, what's the one thing you dislike most about dad? Think about whatever comes up for you. Was he aggressive? Was he mean? Was he controlling? Was he manipulative? Was he absent? What was the word that came up for you? Now, I want you to answer that 3 times. Now, the other ways you can ask that question, what's the one thing you dislike most, what I just said? What's the one thing that triggers you most about this person? Or what's the one thing you wish you could change about this person? Look for 3 one-word answers. 3 one-word answers for dad. Then I want you to repeat the process for mum. What's the one thing you dislike most about mum? What's the one thing you wish you could change about mum? Or what's the one thing that triggers you most about mum? Use one-word answers, look for 3 answers. Now, pause the video if you need more time, or pause this podcast if you need more time for this. Once you've got your answers, look at your answers. Those answers are wounds of yours. Abandonment, rejection, selfishness, isolation, criticism, judgment, control, whatever came up for you. So when your partner or anyone does these things to you, it triggers you into a coping mechanism. Now, depending on what your coping mechanism is, you can get categorized into an attachment style. And again, what I would suggest doing is go do a healing process on those traits and behaviors, on those wounds. So then when your partner does these things to you, which they will, because that's what relationships are the ultimate mirror and reflection to you. Go do a healing process on those wounds, and then your triggers and coping mechanisms go away. So you're less anxiously attached or less avoidant attached or fearful attached. You're securely attached because you're just not triggered. I hope this made sense. I'm going to wrap this up. This is a shorter podcast. Let me know your thoughts on this. If you disagree, if you agree, if it made sense, if the penny dropped for you. My goal with my coaching, with my mission and my purpose that I'm on, is to empower people. I don't see, without this part I've mentioned today, I don't see using attachment styles as empowering that much for humans. It does a little bit where it allows you to understand who you are, what your attachment style is, what your partner's is, and how you can relate then and there in the moment or for the short term. But without understanding this point of actually healing from your wounds, which will take away your coping mechanisms and your triggers, without that part, it's not empowering. It's just like another label. I talk about this and I'm very passionate about this, as you can tell. Labels become limitations. If you believe I'm anxiously attached, these are all my things that I'm fucked about and I can't change them, that's not empowering. Not in my world anyways. Yes, understand the label, understand where you're at so you can do the best with what you can right now, but let's move towards healing. Let's move towards becoming, quote, securely attached, which is another way of saying you're just not triggered very often because you've healed a lot of your wounds. I hope that made sense. Let me know if you've got any questions. If it made sense, put your thoughts down below. Please share this with someone if you got some value. If you're interested in work with me, please grab a copy of my book. It's called The Inspired Life Method. It's on Amazon, Kindle, Audible. The links are down below. If you want a free trial of my coaching, it comes with a one-on-one call with me. It's a free trial for 7 days. Look at the details below. I love you. I appreciate you. Share this with a friend. Have a gorgeous day. I appreciate you. Speak to you soon.